r/AskReddit by Redmond ETS. What's the weirdest conspiracy theory you've ever heard? A former neighbor of mine claimed that there was a gold mine underneath the apartment building we lived in. She claimed that she saw miners going into secret entrances in the middle of the night, and the landlord was getting filthy rich without sharing anything with us. She couldn't explain how they shipped the gold out without anybody noticing, or how an apartment building could be built directly on top of a mine. She seemed sane enough before that conversation, so I was really surprised that the Great Fire of London was actually started by a rat spontaneously combusting. This one wins. A packed city built mostly of wood, where everyone cooks over hearths with sooty, crumbling chimneys, and lights their homes with tallow candles and oil lamps. But yeah, a rat did it. Totally. Recently heard one that said that hurricanes are specifically targeting Florida, because Florida gets hit with so many hurricanes. Make it make sense. That's ridiculous. Everyone knows the government steers hurricanes. Some of the flat earthers claim that Australia doesn't exist, and that even the airline pilots are in on the scam. When you fly there, they are actually taking you somewhere else. A few years ago, when the Q morons thought JFK Jr. was going to show up, faked his death, returned from the grave, and crowned Trump president. Even if JFK Jr. showed up by whatever method, why would he have the power to decide who is president? Is there something in the Constitution that says the children of assassinated presidents wield this authority? I missed that day in social studies, I guess. A childhood friend of mine, who laughed at me for believing in global warming, told me he believes in UFOs, but not aliens. He believes the UFOs are driven by demons. There's a podcast exploring whether the German hair metal band the Scorpions were really CIA operatives. Their song Winds of Change was huge in Russia and Eastern Europe as an anthem around the time of the collapse of the Soviet Union. The podcast was awesome. It takes this batshit crazy idea and just follows lead after lead, none of which proves anything, but which collectively make you start to think there's something to it. But at the end, they interview their Russian translator guide about the whole thing. What did she think of their fun little conspiracy theory? She said it made her sad. She said the KGB used to say things like anything Western that a Russian might like was attacked as a CIA plot. She said today, Putin and his cronies are the ones who spread conspiracies like that. To her, America stands for the opposite of all that. America is where the truth is valued, where people and governments act on real facts, not manipulative conspiracies. So she found the whole idea of the podcast to be depressing. She said Winds of Change meant a lot to the people hoping for a better life than the repressive Soviet system would allow. They were told at the time they were victims of CIA propaganda, and she'd hate for that to have been true. Worse, she hates that a bunch of Americans were treating this conspiracy theory as a fun and harmless source of entertainment. Blurring the lines between fact and fiction is helping Putin create the world he wants, where nothing is objectively true but what Putin himself claims. Americans shouldn't want to do that, and she was bummed to see these Americans inadvertently playing Putin's game. Honestly, conspiracy theories have seemed a lot less like harmless fun to me since then. That the vaccinations have chips in them. Like the governments can get their shit together enough to pull it off. Pretty much all conspiracies that keep setting new dates for the end of the world. Like, at some point, no matter how daft you are, you've got to start developing some questions about the merit of it. Right. That Disneyland sits on stolen land in the castle is a secret ICBM missile launching facility. I met a lady on a bus one time that told me her tale. You see, her family used to own the land that Disneyland sits on back in the day. They didn't want to sell, but Disney used coercive tactics to get the land. Now she is the last survivor of her family and thus the lone claimant left alive that could seek justice in court. She was on the bus today and laying low after having recently survived an assassination attempt. She was at her auntie's house making cookies when an assassin from Disney walked up to the home and sprayed down the kitchen with a full auto Mach 11. Her auntie died, but she made it out alive by jumping out the kitchen window and running to safety. You see, the reason for the assassination attempts is that she knows the true purpose of Disneyland. Besides the land issues, she has seen that the castle in Disneyland is secretly a nuclear missile launching facility. When the time comes, Disney, I guess, will launch them. And they need to keep that a secret. I got off at my stop. But I've always remembered that conversation I had on the bus with that lady. What I love about these is the idea that the person is lying low but also sharing the entire conspiracy with whoever happens to be within a 5-foot radius of them at any time. So this is a super odd one. I've heard most of the more common ones, but this lady blew my mind. I am the lead teacher in the infant room at a daycare. There was a couple taking a tour of our facility for their upcoming baby. Mom was still pregnant during this. So as they are standing in the room and I'm doing my usual spiel of what a day typically entails, I mention that I have certain toys that are really helpful in identifying colors. Somehow I mentioned something about primary and secondary colors. Mom starts freaking out. She doesn't believe in primary and secondary colors. I was a little confused, but she kept saying that primary and secondary colors was just an idea. Which I sorta got, but she was full on in the belief that Crayola was behind the push of separating and defining colors and that everything in regards to that was part of the big color industry. She used the words big color industry. Like for real. I had no idea how to respond, so I just segued into other things we do through the day and prayed that they would not enroll their kid. We never heard from them after the tour, and honestly, kind of glad. Big color industry? I was honest to God flabbergasted. That the ISS doesn't exist and all evidence is faked so the government can launder money. You can find websites that show you exactly when and where you can go look at it with the naked eye and even photograph it. Here's a crazy one. Black Lives Matter donated large sums of money to anti-abortion campaigns, which contributed to Roe vs. Wade being reversed. Since blacks were getting abortions at a much higher rate than other ethnic groups, their population is expected to increase while socioeconomic status will decline further. All this leads to more destitute communities, ensuring more tension and violence, resulting in more crime, police crackdown, and protests in response. The end game are greater influence and profits for BLM and related activist groups. That the Holocaust never happened. Like, here's my grandma. She was there. She'll tell you all about it if you ask. She didn't get together with a bunch of other old Jews and make it all up to make you feel bad about it. Any genocide denial. Not just the Holocaust. Look at Bosnia for another example. Birds are spy drones and land on power lines to recharge. That's not an actual conspiracy theory though, it's satire. That's how it started. Inevitably, there are loads of people who wholeheartedly believe it now. O.J. Simpson is innocent. The lizard people have replaced all high-ranking people in politics. Also, the moon landing was fake. 5G causes COVID. That's all folks. Thank you for watching. If you like videos like this one, why not like and subscribe for more? Have a nice evening.